Welcome back to another DSCC lab walkthrough. Today we'll be doing lab 5, GPO configuration. Now our tasks for today are to create a central store for GPO templates, create and deploy from a starter GPO, deploy software packages, map network drives, and deploy a desktop background. Alright, so let's get started with task 1, which is to create a central store for GPO templates. So let's go ahead and open up our group policy management console on our DC01. Alright, so currently, as we will see in a few minutes, my templates are being pulled from a local store, and I want to change that to be from a central store. Let's see what it looks like and how we can verify where they're being pulled from. So in group policy management, we're going to open up our default domain policy so that we can view where the templates are currently being retrieved from. So let's navigate over to our domain at the very top and edit our default domain policy. Okay, so once your console pops up, go ahead and navigate to your user configuration, then policies, administrative templates, and then once this folder loads up, we'll be able to see what I'm speaking about. Alright, so at the very top you see that it says administrative templates, policy definitions, ADMX files retrieved from the local computer. Alright, so this is what we want to change. We want to change this from local computer to a central store. So let's go ahead and close this out real quick, and then we can go ahead and create that central store on our domain controller. So open up a file explorer, navigate to this PC, your C drive, then you will go to Windows, scroll down until you locate System32, or excuse me, your sysvol, and then sysvol folder again, and then your domain, policies, and then in this folder, inside your policies folder, we are going to create our new policy definitions folder. Now this is going to be our central store. As you can see, this folder falls within my domain. So this is what we're trying to do, right? We're trying to make it from a central store so that all your other domain controllers can pull from the same one as well. Alright, so now I've created my policy definitions folders. However, I don't have any templates in there. So I need to transfer the ones from the local computer into the central store. So let's back out of this folder and navigate into the policy definitions folder that comes within this domain controller. Alright, so in my Windows folder within my C drive, I'm going to locate my policy definitions folder. And I'm going to select all the contents in this folder so that I can copy them over into the new policy definitions folder that I just created. So let's go ahead and select all, copy, and then we'll navigate back into the folder that we just created. And now we will paste all of those contents in here. Alright, so that completed successfully. I've successfully transferred all the templates over into the new policy definitions folder that I just created for a central store. So now in order to verify this, we can head back into our group policy management and see if that little portion where it said retrieve from local computer has changed to retrieve from central store. So we'll go back to the same default domain policy and edit it and navigate to the same folder that we did earlier, which is our user configuration, policies, and then administrative templates. All right, now we see that at the very top it changed from retrieved from the local computer to retrieved from the central store. And we have successfully configured a central store from which to pull our templates from. Now our next task is to create and deploy from a starter GPO. Now a starter GPO is pretty much like a template, all right, that you will use when creating new GPOs and it will already come with some settings configured. So as you can see, we don't have any, so I'm going to right click on my starter GPOs folder and create a new one. And this one is going to be for Internet Explorer restrictions. Now the comment section isn't necessary or required, but we're going to add what this is for just so people that plan on using it in the future know what's being applied. So this starter GPO disables the general tab in the internet options. Okay, so now you can see that my starter GPO has been created, but I now have to go in there and edit the actual settings of the GPO. Alright, so let's navigate to the user configuration folder, administrative templates, head down to all settings, and we're going to apply a filter on this on our search so that we can narrow it down to what we're looking for and not get overwhelmed by all these settings. So let's turn this filter on, enable keyword filters. We'll type in general page. And we want our results to be exact. So let's change this to exact. Okay, so now let's head back into the all settings folder. And I have two options to change settings that involve the general page. So I have disable the general page, which is the one that I'm looking for, and I have hide the general page. So now let's go ahead and edit the disable the general page one. And we are going to set this one to enabled. Go ahead and click on apply once you made your selection and then click on OK. So now we've just applied the setting that we were looking for into the GPO. So now this GPO has actually been configured. Now keep in mind that this is just a starter GPO. It isn't actually linked anywhere. So we have to go and create a GPO that is using this as its starter GPO and then link it to wherever we want it to be applied. Now we want this one to be applied across our domain. So let's go to the very root of our domain and let's create a GPO and link it here. Create a GPO on this domain and link it here. And this will be IE restrictions. And then we are going to change our source starter GPO to IE restrictions. Now click on OK once you're done. Now we see that a new GPO has populated under our domain. And if we click on the GPO and we navigate over to the settings tab on the right hand side, we'll be able to see what is actually being implemented through this GPO. Okay, so you can see we have some general information here. We have name and things like that, delegation. Now we don't see anything under the computer configuration because there's nothing configured. We will only see the settings applied, and that will only pertain to our user configuration section. And in that section, we see that the policy disabled, the ground or the general page has been set to enabled. Now that we know that our GPO is being applied correctly, let's log into our workstation to see if it actually is working as it should. So I'm going to log in as a member of the Systems ISC group. First thing I'm going to do is run a GP update /force. Alright, so my group policies has completed its update. So now let's open up a control panel and try to access. Alright, so now let's open up the control panel and try to access the internet options or the general page. So I will try to change my home page, and I can't. It says this feature has been disabled by a restriction set by your system administrator. So now let's go ahead and click OK on this little warning screen. And let's click on Internet Options. Now, as you can see, I don't have a general tab up top. I have everything else but not a general page, and that's because we disabled this through the GPO. So the reason that you can't change your home page is because the changing your home page option is under the Generals tab, or the General tab. Now, let's go back to my domain controller and make a few changes. I don't want my systems ISC to be restricted by this, or let's go back into my domain controller and change some settings, because I don't want my systems ISC to receive this GPO. I want them to be able to make changes under the general tab. So let's head over to my 11mu IE restrictions GPO and head over to the delegation tab. And once we're in there, we're going to navigate down to the advanced tab, and we are going to add our systems ISC security group. Alright, 11mu systems ISC. Click on OK. Click on apply, and now I want to set the permissions for them. So let's make sure 11mu systems ISC is selected, which it is. If you scroll down, we'll see we have permissions for 11mu systems ISC. So now let's go ahead and change this. We'll scroll down and we'll look for the one that says apply group policy. We want to set this to deny. We do not want to apply the group policy to our 11mu systems ISC. Go ahead and click on apply, click yes on the warning, and then click OK. So now we'll head back into our workstation, and once again we will run a group policy update. Alright, and now our update has finished successfully. So now let's open up our control panel again and try to make the same changes that we tried to do earlier. And then we will try to change our homepage by clicking on change your homepage. And as you can see, now we don't get a warning, and that's because we can now view the general tab. Alright, so now for task 3, we are going to deploy a software package. Now before we get to the settings of the actual GPO, we want to create a folder or some type of repository from where we are going to pull the software or store it. So let's log into our app server. And let's head over to our file explorer, and we're going to create a folder on the backups drive or our E drive. So let's create a folder in here. We'll name this folder software. So we want to set the permissions for this folder for authenticated users to be able to change it. So let's go to the Sharing tab. We'll go to Advanced Sharing. We will share this folder, change the permissions to it, and we are going to add authenticated users. So now that we've added the group, we're going to modify the permissions for this group to make sure that you have your authenticated users selected and allow change. Once you've completed all of that, click on apply and click on OK. Take note of your network path. And now let's head back into our domain controller. Alright, so now that we've created this folder, the next thing that we're going to do is add the software that we want to push out through our GPO. Now for this scenario, we are going to be installing a 7-zip file or software package. I currently have it saved as an ISO on my desktop, so all I'm doing here is adding it or mounting it to my virtual machine so that I can pull that software. Alright, so let's go ahead and open up our ISO and let's drag the most current version of our software into the software folder that we created on our share. Alright, so now I've moved it over to the appropriate folder. I can close all this out. And now we can get into the actual configuration of the GPO. So let's create this GPO under our workstations because I want all my workstations to be able to receive this software. So I'll click on my 11mu workstations OU and I will right click on it and create a GPO on this domain and link it here. We're going to name this deploy software and we'll put 7-zip so we know what type of software we're deploying. Click on OK. We don't want to set any source starter GPO for this example. So now that we've created the GPO, our next step is to edit that GPO. So let's go ahead and select it, right click on it, and then edit. And now that we're into our group policy management editor, we're going to navigate down to the folder where we can deploy a package. So we'll head over to computer configuration, policies, software settings, and software installation. And then we'll right click on the software installation portion and select new, and our only option is package. Alright, so let's head over to 11mu apps, software, and select our 7-zip software package. Click on open, and we're going to select our deployment method. This one is going to be set to assign. So we'll just go ahead and leave it as default. Alright, so now I can see that my software package has populated in there. I've completed configuring my GPO settings. So we can see the source from where it's being pulled, the package, what type of deployment state it is, which is assigned, and even the version. So if you have no other software packages to add to this, for example, we don't, let's go ahead and exit this out. And like always, we'll run a GP update on our workstation. Now keep in mind that when you are deploying software packages through a group policy and you run a GP update, you might see that the GP update was completed successfully, and it might even ask you to, or it might even prompt you to restart your machine like it will in this example. However, it will take a few minutes for the package to actually be seen on your workstation since it is being downloaded through your network. Okay, so now for our next task, we are going to map a network drive. Now, just like in the previous task, the first thing we're going to want to do is create the actual folder that we want to map. So let's log into our app server so that we can create that folder. I'm going to create this one in my E drive as well. We'll create a new folder, and this one will be named share. And then I'm going to share this folder, and I'm also going to configure the permissions so that anybody who's an authenticated user has change permissions. So let's navigate to our properties, sharing tab, advanced sharing, share this folder. Then let's change the permissions. We will add our authenticated users. And modify their permissions to set change allow. Alright, so now let's go back to my domain controller so I can configure this group policy. Now for this group policy, I want it to be applied to all of my users regardless of what section they're in. So I'm going to apply this to the 11mu users OU. So let's right click on it, create a GPO in this domain, and link it here. And we'll name this GPO drive map tag general. And no source starter GPO. Now let's go ahead and edit our GPO. And we'll navigate over to user configuration, preferences, wrong folders, or preferences, and then Windows settings, drive maps, and then we'll right click on the right hand side and the right pane Expand this. All right, we'll right click in this box right here, select new, mapped drive. Now let's go ahead and change properties to our setting. Let's change our action to create, because we want to create this share. Now our location is going to be the network location or the UNC path to that folder that we shared, which should be 11mu apps/share. Now let's go ahead and select, or excuse me, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and test this path, right? If I type in this path, it should open up my folder. Which it did. And I can also attempt, if I wanted to create files in there. We'll skip that step for now. I know I can get to it. We'll go ahead and click reconnect, and then we'll assign it a drive letter. And we'll go ahead and set this drive letter to Z. And then the last thing we want to do is change this setting right here to show this drive. We'll click on apply and then click on OK. Okay, so I can review my settings there. So now that I finished configuring my GPO, let's head back into my workstation. We'll once again run a GP update. Alright, so now this is prompting me for a restart, so let's go ahead and do that. Right, now I've restarted my workstation, and I can see that at the very bottom under network locations, I now am able to view that share drive that I shared through my GPO. Now the only file I have in there right now is a wallpaper file, but I can go ahead and create a new folder if I needed to, just as a test. Now our final task is to deploy a desktop background. Now I want this desktop background to be applied to my system's OU. So let's go ahead and create a GPO and link it here. We will name this one desktop wallpaper with no source starter GPO. Now let's go ahead and edit that GPO. We'll navigate down to user configuration, policies, administrative templates, desktop, and desktop. And we are looking for the desktop wallpaper setting. So let's go ahead and open that up. Okay, and we're going to set this to enabled. Now, under the wallpaper name, you see that I have two options. I can select a local path, like my C drive, or a UNC path, or a network path. Now, we will be using a network path because we are pulling this wallpaper from our share drive. So let's go ahead and type in our share drive path, which is 11mu apps, share, and then I will also add the name of the file I will be using as my wallpaper. And this one is simply wallpaper, and I will also include the extension of that file, and this is set as a PNG. Now if I wanted to test this before I went ahead and pushed out this GPO, or if I already did it and my GPO wasn't working, so I'm troubleshooting, this is one of the first places I would come look. First thing I would do is I would copy and paste this path right here. I would open up a file explorer, and just like we did in the earlier test when we were testing our share drive path, I'm going to paste that path into the file explorer. Now if it works properly, when I press enter, it will populate the picture. This one didn't because I misspelled the 11mu portion of my host name. So let's go back and fix that, and let's give it another shot. And then boom, my picture automatically popped up, which is a self-portrait of me. Now let's go ahead and close this out. We can set the wallpaper style. We have a few different options here. So it's all preference really. I want to set mine to tile. Now once you've made your changes and assured everything works correctly, click on apply and then click on OK. Then we'll exit all of this out. And then of course we'll head over to our workstation. Let's go ahead and log in as a user in our systems OU, because that is where we applied the GPO. And since I wasn't already logged in as this user, it should automatically pull any new group policy updates. So I will not have to run a GP update, and my wallpaper should automatically populate. Now if I was logged in as this user already, I would simply run a GP update and probably restart my computer, or at the very least log out and log back in. Alright, and there we have it. We have my wallpaper, a beautiful self-portrait of myself. You can see at the very bottom there was an attempt to try and tile this format out. That's all going to depend on the size of your file. I guess this one's a little bit of a bigger size. If it was smaller, obviously it'd look a little bit more tiled.